What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Rip the Net. Super excited to be with y'all this week. My name is Eric.
I'm Alexi.
And like always, man, super excited to be spending this episode with y'all. Hope to, we have some interesting topics today, so I'm just interested and excited to be getting into it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We are now in video form, so we are changing things up little by little, man. But yeah, how are you guys doing this week?
Chilling. Some decent stuff going on in the soccer world. I know we'll get to that in a second. But NBA Finals also going on. I believe Game 2 happening right now. So I know we're gonna get to that maybe and next week or the week after, whenever that actually wraps up, depending on how many games it goes. But sports, kind of, I will say, I don't watch tennis, and I didn't watch the French Open either. But I did hear that game went 5 hours, some crazy, back and forth. So I respect that, even though I didn't watch it. That's something I wish I had watched. So
I heard it was like a comeback, like the Patriots or something, like that level of crazy.
Fair play to tennis.
Fair play to tennis. Shout out to them. I watched them a little bit more this year, not by choice, just by coincidence of being in the room. But it's cool. That went on. We got the Nations League, which finished up today. Portugal took that dub. A lot of people are hyping up Yamal versus Ronaldo. The strongest sorcerer of the past versus the strongest sorcerer of the present.
If you know, you know.
And if you know, you know. And Ronaldo proved why he is still one of the GOATs of the game. 40 years old, almost went the full 90 in extra time. In the 80th minute, though, he had a little leg injury, so he had to be taken off. But you could see he still had the desire and the energy and everything to keep playing. It wasn't the best game, and I think Portugal kind of turned things around in the second half and really kind of dominated. Spain definitely had the advantage in the first half, but Yamal was just locked up by that dude. Mendes, bro. He was going absolutely crazy. He won I believe the player of the tournament or the player of the game, something like that. But yeah, it was a solid matchup. And then also in soccer news the past week, Ange Postecoglou, man. He won that trophy in the second season, but Tottenham, them owners, they saw what United did when Ten Hag won his trophy, and they were like, yeah, you know what? Let's sign him on. Let's give him another season. They said, no, we're not repeating mistakes. So they didn't even give the brother a chance. He's out. We do not know who his replacement will be, but it will be interesting to follow. We will keep y'all updated and discuss that as the news trickles in.
For sure. And I think just quickly on the Ange news, I do think that's the right decision from Spurs. I do believe, even if from an Ange perspective, I think even if they didn't sack him, I think if I were in his position, I would have said, you know what, let me go out on a high. He did something no Spurs manager, and they've had a crazy lineup of managers in the last however many years. Mourinho, Conte, Pochettino, obviously. I'm probably forgetting someone big. They've had a lot of big managers recently.
They have had really big managers.
None of them could get it done for them, but he brought them a trophy. He guaranteed it before the game, which was a moment, and he got them the trophy. So if I were him, considering how poorly the league season went, I would say, you know what? I'm out. I'm going to go somewhere else and just be a 2-season mercenary. Keep hopping team to team and say, you know what? I can guarantee you a trophy in your second season until that doesn't work out.
And then retire.
Then you're good. He's already on the older side, Just go back to Australia and chill out, mate. But, I respect what he did this season for Spurs. Not in the league. That was absolutely atrocious. But you guaranteed a trophy. You got the trophy. I think it's a good time to split. And I think he could probably land on his feet, honestly. So I'm curious to see who Spurs bring in. And we'll definitely cover that.
For sure. But with that, we will get into our first topic. That being, we discussed it in last week's episode, the state of Kith, a little fashion talk. Now, for some context, I believe we were discussing our various opinions on Kith because of what they did with the Knicks, right?
Yes, sir.
Maybe? Yes. So, with that, I have this issue with Kith where I feel like they just spam collaborations, which a lot of brands do. But with them specifically, it's not just the fact they spam collaborations, but they spam projects which literally are t-shirts that take the same graphics and literally the exact same graphics on a Target t-shirt or a TJ Maxx tee for like a Spider-Man collab or Superman, and then charge $75. And literally it's the same exact picture of whatever collab it is with the Kith logo on it. And to me, at least as someone who follows the scene, we are not in the logo mania of 2016, 2017 anymore. You know, Supreme isn't what it was. You know, it still has its audience, but even Supreme has shifted on away from the box logo on everything. But Kith, it doesn't seem like they've transitioned in that way. You know, with their mainline clothing, if you take a look at their site, it all just feels old, man. It feels like this weird, like, wannabe old money thing. But then you look at the actual product and it's like, damn, those shorts, okay, bit of an old looking plaid pattern. Why is it $150 and 100% polyester? What? Like that ain't quality, bro. That's scammery. That's robbery. So I got issues with their materials and their pricing and just what I see as laziness of collabs. You know, if you follow, I believe on the subreddit, it's become a whole meme at this point where with every new Kith collaboration, Ronnie Feig, the founder, he always puts out a statement like, when I was a kid, I loved Honey Nut Cheerios. It's my honor today to be able to put out a collection that pays homage to Honey Nut Cheerios and what they mean to children across the world. Like, bro, are you kidding me? This is a cereal brand. And he probably would do that for Kleenex if they did a collab with them. Like, I am not kidding. They have done it with cars. They have done it with suitcases. They have done it with everything. And it's just like, bro, no one is passionate about that many different IPs to where they're honored to have a collaboration. So that's my issue. I'd love to hear if you guys have any opinion. You know I'm a bit in the weeds of this sort of thing, so I'm curious what your perspective might be.
Well, I will say for one, have you ever had Kith treats?
I did once.
What were your thoughts?
I mean, it was all right, bro. I don't eat dessert all that much anyways, but that isn't redeeming them.
Would love a Honey Nut Cheerio flavor in their Kith Treats menu, but that's not here nor there. Kith Treats is fire, man. It's overpriced, but it tastes pretty good. But listen, I think when it comes to Kith, I can understand what you're saying in the sense that like things can seem very watered down. I also just feel like that's the world that we're living in, man, and I think it's tough, but I still feel like there is appeal to the Kith brand. Like, I think they have a certain aesthetic that, yes, I like what you said about old money. It does kind of give that vibe. Isn't really super, like, there are elements of streetwear in it, but it's not, I think it does lean over onto the old money side. But I think what all things considered, it's not, like you said, it's not the mid 2010s anymore. A Kith logo is not gonna stand out the same way a Supreme logo no longer stands out, the way a Bape logo no longer stands out, and I think that's okay. I still think I also just feel like in general we're not living in an era where it's like, whoa, like you have that on, like you have that article of clothing, or dang, you're able to get your hands on those sneakers. I just feel like those days are a little bit behind us, and it's crazy to even say that because I think we all grew up in that era where like we coveted I don't think I ever coveted like specific like clothing articles, but definitely coveted a lot of sneakers. And so the actual name behind an article no longer carries the same weight that it used to. Now, in terms of the various collabs that they do, I can definitely understand why that can be a little bit off-putting. And I think I'm not gonna act like I'm the biggest Kith like advocate, But I will say I'm a fan of the aesthetic. I do love going into their flagship store. They just opened up a new one, um, or reopened their flagship store in New York City. And I don't know, it's like a nice little stroll in the Soho area. I just love being in Soho in general. So that's just me, and maybe I stand alone on that. But I think the aesthetic to me, while maybe you can say that they have quote unquote sold out, I think you could still make the case that it's still something that looks good. And I think at the end of the day, that's really where I value things. The
Mhm.
high price point, 100%. I agree with you on that. But like I will say, for anyone out there who may, this is a sports podcast, so I'll throw out the Knicks collabs. Look at the pieces that they drop, and would say, like, I at least feel like maybe, I mean, I've never owned a piece, so can't really speak to the quality, but I will say just for the visual, for the appearance, I think it's a good look. And I think when you have a team like the New York Knicks that is currently booming in relevancy, you're gonna want something like a big name brand attached to it. I think that's just how it works. And I think Kith, with that collaboration, the fact that Ronnie Feig is now the creative director of the New York Knicks, he designs their City Edition jerseys. Like, I think that's what makes me align with them a little bit more. It's like they have that bit of like New York representation, and it's, I don't know, it's hard. I will say this, as a Knicks fan, it's hard to make Knicks colors look good, and I think they did a great job doing that. And I think along with their other pieces, I think the aesthetic is something that I am personally a fan of.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? That's totally fair. And I definitely understand the maybe more New York angle of like, oh, this is a brand from New York. They got close ties with the Knicks. They have for a long time. I can understand that specifically. But even with the aesthetic, right? Like, what they do aesthetically isn't anything new. They don't bring anything really new to the game, to the style game. They just take what's already out there, what's already trending, what's already on TikTok, and then like slap their logo on it, maybe a floral pattern or two, get Giancarlo Esposito to wear it for a campaign, and then that's it. Like, bro, I'm looking right now at another pair of shorts, 100% polyester, $255. And they did a whole collab with Adidas, right? They've done it in the past. They had a pair of Ultra Boosts, I remember. Ultra Boost mids from maybe 2017 that were kind of based on like a knit sweater from like skiing. And those were so fire. I thought they were the cleanest shoes at the time. Now, they're dropping fake jerseys, bro, with the DHL logo on it, with the ESPN logo on it. Like, what are we doing? Why would I rock a fake jersey? So,
Yeah.
no,
No,
I take issue with that. I mean, I know that, side note, soccer jerseys have kind of been a trend with the whole bloat core thing, but just get a real jersey or a jersey collab like with an actual team, like not some brand's take on a jersey with, a Disney owned company or with a shipping service. Like, why would I want to represent DHL, bro?
I'm glad you brought that up, because as someone who's not like super tapped into Kith or what they've been doing recently, although I will say they were kind of unavoidable when we were maybe late high school, so I guess we're pushing 10 years ago now, so maybe that speaks a lot to their relevancy in general. But like those kits you just brought up, when I went to go research for this episode, just what they're doing recently, the Adidas 2025 spring collab, I'm looking at these kits and I'm like, actually, I don't mind these. Like, these look okay. Then I'm like zooming in. I'm like, why in the hell would I drop 150, 175, whatever, on this jersey for the Kith badge, some other foo-foo badge, and then, like you said, some random sponsor, when I can drop that same amount for a retro kit of an actual team that I care about, or an actual player I want to see on the back of my jersey? It just doesn't make sense. The pricing, like, obviously it makes sense for them because they're a kid, they're going to drop whatever price they want and people are going to buy it, but, or maybe not, depending on how relevant they are now. But I I don't see if that's the market you're going for, especially with a collab like that. I don't understand why they think that would be more appealing to the people who would want a jersey than an actual jersey from that time. Because those are about the same prices. If you want to get like an authentic retro jersey, it's about the same. Like, and those aren't cheap either. But at least you're actually getting, like, I can get Thierry Henry on my back for that price rather than Kith, whatever, Fufu, FIFA creator. Like when we play clubs and you do create a kit, it's literally that level of like
literally
bad design, bro. It's like that level. So not even to dunk on that specifically, but I don't know. Maybe they're aiming, like they want to dabble in like these things that they know are popular. Like you said, the bloat core is like a relevant thing, and they want to dabble in that. Okay, we see that's popular. We're gonna hop on that. We slap a kith on it, and maybe they're hoping to get the people who aren't actually into soccer, or just want to get that kind of look. And I feel like those are the only type of people that might want to grab something like that over an actual soccer kit. Maybe they're looking for that more casual kind of.
I hate that that's what you're trying to appeal to, bro. Like you have a collab with Adidas, and like you could actually probably get a real jersey with a real team, like even if it's MLS, bro. Even if it's MLS or something, like you could do that. That would be cooler. Like NYCFC, like I don't even like them at all, but hey, they're in New York. You could do a jersey with them. It makes sense since you're already doing jerseys with the Knicks, and you know it just bothers me. And I'm just scrolling again through their Adidas collab, and it's like, bro, like this knitwear tracksuit, like, bro, you see that top? Like, who is wearing that? Pants, whatever, but that top, bro, that looks like, you know, Squid Game went to the retirement home. Like, it is just it's weird. So I for one, I just want to, maybe not just Kith in general, but I think more just of those high street brands. I just want to see them do better, bro. And Kith is always the one I'm disappointed by the most. Right after that is Aimé Leon Dore, ALD. The prices for what these companies are putting out and the quality of them is consistently awful, consistently terrible. So as a fan of just fashion and following the scene, you know, that's just my humble opinion.
I think that's fair, and I think it's especially fair because you're so invested. Because as someone who's not, then you really see, like, at least you're even there checking it out when it comes out. Even subconsciously, that's you giving it a chance because you want to, like, you're hoping that something that you're invested in is going to provide the quality, or at least repay you for that investment. But for me, seeing like Kith however many years ago, seeing like the Kith Asics however many years ago, and I like Asics as a brand as well, even back then, and I was like, oh, Kith Asics, that actually got me intrigued. That's for someone who's not invested, I was like, okay, this is actually something I could see myself potentially buying.
The footwear they don't miss. The footwear, I think for the most part they don't. But on the flip side, it ain't that hard to come up with some cool colorways, bro. When you're given the model of a shoe, like, that's already good, and you're told, hey man, pick the colors, pick the material, like, it's like create a club, bro, FIFA, whatever. Literally. Like, you know what colors are gonna work, they're gonna look nice. So I'll give some credit for the footwear, but that doesn't save them.
It doesn't save them, and I think especially it doesn't save them because now when you're getting to stuff that's not the footwear and these like other collabs, at least the footwear is coming into my orbit slightly because of the quality. These other things I'm not even hearing about, period, and that's scary for a brand that is meant to be name value led. Like, not everyone's gonna say, okay, the kit is the best quality. Maybe it was back in the day, but like you're just mentioning all the like the polyester for this however many price, but people will like the kit name, the kit look, the name value of the kit brand. But now if that's not even carrying you to where like I'm not even hearing about it, because you want people who aren't even as invested to at least get some kind of like trickle down, oh, I hear about the kits, get you at least a little curious about it. But if that's not even happening, that's showing how your brand is declining, because now you're really depending on the core, and then for the core you have to have the quality, For the others, you can maybe just have the name value, but for the core, you need the quality. So now you're getting back to someone like Alexi, who's in the core, and you're disappointing him with the quality. Now you're failing on both fronts. So then where do you go? Who do you turn to? So I think it's really interesting to see where or how they bounce back in the coming years. Because I think generally streetwear and these big brands, even like the sneaker market, I know people are saying it's about to come back, whatever, but I think a lot of these brands really have to consider this, because I think with all these smaller, like upstart, just people on like TikTok, for example, are coming up with their own stuff, I think there's a real chance people really invest in these smaller creators or smaller brands, and these big brands are, they might start knocking on your door. That's all I'm gonna say. You might have to look over your shoulder. I know someone who might be starting a clothing brand soon.
Hey, man.
Maybe. Maybe. So just watch over your shoulder.
Watch out. But for real, I think you bring up some really great points, like especially on like, people who maybe necessarily don't follow this all the time, and it actually made me think, like, even just going on TikTok, bro. I get fashion TikTok, like all those videos. Not once, literally, not once in the past 6 months, I'm willing to say, at the very least, have I seen a single video where someone's trying to flex Kith, trying to show off Kith in a fit, trying to talk about it. Nothing. The only time I've seen talk about Kith is about, like, oh, they announced a collaboration, and like not even real hype behind it, but being like, yeah, they got a Superman collab, that's cool. But like, no one's actually wearing this stuff. No one's like hyping it up in that way. And if you don't got the TikTok kids, the people out there actually, like, showing off all these brands all the time, which are growing and continuing to gain influence, like, that's a major fumble. So they got to course correct. But
do any of you guys own any like Kith articles?
I do, from like back in the day, for sure.
Nope.
Okay.
The last Kith I got was when they did a collab with Star Wars, because
makes sense.
I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I was like, yo, my favorite, IP getting some recognition. And at the time that I got a really cool sweater with like Darth Vader on it. It's like a scene from the movie, but just all over the quarter zip. And like, it's cool, but at the same time, I'm willing to also say, like, it's not that original. They just put like a screenshot of the movie all over a quarter zip. So like, design wise, it's nothing crazy, but I accept that my nostalgia played a part in that purchase.
That's fair.
That's why they do collabs. That's probably what they're going for. Just to drag out a little bit of nostalgia in each. I guess that's why he writes these handwritten notes for all these things he definitely didn't care about growing up. Where he's like, let me drag out some nostalgia for the Honey Nut Cheerios for someone,
I mean, that's a big part of what they do, is playing on the nostalgia, but it's like you can only tug on those strings so much before someone starts feeling a little taken advantage of,
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. But anyways, unless if y'all have anything else to add, I think we can transition.
Yeah, I will say, Ronnie Fi, keep doing your thing on the Knicks, man. I personally have been liking the City Edition jerseys, man. You got a thumbs up from me. I saw like a little bit of I think I saw a leak of what the shorts are gonna look like for the City Editions this upcoming season, and I'll just say they look solid, man. And soft spot in my heart because of the blue and orange, the orange and blue, but neither here nor there. Yeah, this is good though. This is good to know, because I will say for myself, I'm not like super incredibly tapped into the streetwear world, but like to think I dibble and dabble. Kith has always been like something that, like, a brand that I've always respected. And like I said, the aesthetic to me is still appealing on certain pieces, but I also think what's going on with them, I think like I said, you're gonna get that in a lot of other. I think the big brands, the brands that we really see push out a lot more pieces, a lot more just releases in general. I know we've been very candid about Fear of God, but recently they collab with the NBA, a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So it is a little bit interesting to see how people within the street world who may have considered these lines or these brands to have quote unquote like sold out or been disappointing. It is interesting to see them step into what you could say like the mainstream pop culture at this point, or just mainstream culture in general, and how successful they've been. So I think you're always going to get that, like no matter how loud the noise can be, these brands are winning at the end of the day, which is kind of like a I don't want to say unfortunate thing, not praying for anybody's downfall, but I just think that contrast is always going to exist, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. It comes in waves too.
100%. Cool. Well, to get into our next topic, man, we are in NBA Finals season, man. So we spoke a little bit about this last week. I will say we didn't give our predictions. Well, I at the very end of the episode said Thunder in 5, and judging off of game 1, it looks like they are well on their way to potentially taking the series in 5 games. Full transparency, we are recording this the night of game 2. And the Thunder are up about 17 points in the late third quarter. So, no lead is ever safe in the NBA playoffs, as we have seen this year.
Especially
but
against the Pacers,
100%. Well, let's not do that. But yeah, all right. I was like, yeah, nah, forget that. Anyways, before we even get into our topic, man, I know we didn't discuss this, but just before we got on here, I was catching a bit of the game, and there actually has been, I'm sure, or you guys can tell me if you guys have heard about the backlash about, when it's NBA Finals season, people always get very nostalgic, or whenever it's any kind of like big event, people will get nostalgic and post like, oh man, like, yes, like for example, in this case, it's currently the NBA Finals, but like, remember when they had the NBA Finals patches on their jerseys, when they had the Larry O'Brien patches on their jerseys, when they had the Larry O'Brien trophy on the hardwood floor? Like, people have been showing the courts and how they used to show a trophy on the court, and how now those spaces are taken up by sponsorships. YouTube TV has been smack in the middle of just all things NBA Finals as of recent. So sorry about that. Let me go on D&D. But yeah, man, we're currently in the midst of game 2, and there was an announcement that ESPN would be doing like this digital Larry O'Brien trophy on the court to make up for that, I guess, nostalgia that people are really reminiscing on. And I will say, anyone who has had a chance to tune in, anyone who has a chance to see, I highly encourage you to, if you haven't seen it yet, highly encourage you to do so. Those who have seen it, I'm not sure if people will agree with me, but I will say it looks absolutely disgusting. I think it's up in the face to to what the fans are pleading for. Respect to ESPN for trying to make up for the NBA's lack of, I guess, attention / like action towards what the fans are calling for. But to me, it's honestly, it does not look good. It looks very forced. It looks weird. It looks very weird, and it's not what the fans were expecting. So I'm sure Twitter is going to be going crazy tonight, if it hasn't done so already, in reaction to that Larry O'Brien on the court. So I just want to put that out there. I don't know if Alexi or Dre, if you guys have anything to say about that. I know that's very out of nowhere, but just something I felt like was necessary to speak on.
Yeah, I just went and saw the little foo-foo Larry O'Brien on the court. What are they doing, bruh? What are they doing? I can respect it, like you said. I can respect the effort, or at least the thought behind it. But just, I feel like if you're gonna commit to going full commercial, full like sponsor, full. Let's just forsake the tradition and go for the money. Get your bag, but don't try to go halfway. You don't try to do this halfway thing. Just admit, we just care about the money. We don't care about the Larry O'Brien patches. We don't care about like the kind of atmosphere around the finals and what that means for fans. We just want to get our little bag. We'll put YouTube TV on the court, call it a day. Then just do that and just say all of that. That's in the past. If you want to watch those games, go watch those games. That's in the past. I'll be fine. I respect that more than doing this, which is like, you're kind of you're half acknowledging that like, oh yeah, we kind of did give up on that kind of thing, but we're not willing to really commit to doing it again because we actually care more about the money. So we'll just throw a little something on there for you, like that to me, that's just even more disrespectful at this point. I think, I don't know. I feel like those things, maybe to them it felt small, but I think the atmosphere of the finals, like that kind of mystique around it, I think that was always super important. I think even looking back and watching old clips of like finals games or just moments, seeing that on the court or seeing that on the jerseys always gave it this extra feel of like you could feel the importance of the moment, the importance of the game. But I feel like these days you tune into the finals and it just looks like it could just be any other game, which is, I feel like, especially for a non-fan, like if it's just a random person tuning in and just like say it's their first NBA game ever, there's nothing really to really give them that feel, unless it happens to be like a super late game and it's close, a super close game and it's late, then maybe they'll get that feel. But I feel like visually it's important to have something that gives that feel. So I don't know. It's kind of a shame, but I doubt wherever. Maybe next year they'll bring back the patches on the jerseys. At least that. Like, at least if you're not going to do the court, I understand you want your sponsorships on the court. I feel like at least a little patch on the jersey, it shouldn't be too much to ask for. Something.
I agree. I agree completely. I think it's more annoying too because like you've seen this grow in every sport where they're just trying to fit more and more sponsors into everything. Like, I absolutely hate now how you have sponsors on like the sleeves of kits. You have it on literally the back under the number. Like it's getting to be too much, bro. Like, I know y'all got to make your money, but aren't y'all making enough already? Like you really need to plug in more sponsors there. And especially for something like the finals, I know like, for like a Champions League final, something like that, I love seeing like on the jersey, like a little patch, a little embroidery, signifying the moment. Like that really highlights, yeah, this day, this time, this game is about to go crazy. And it's such a little detail too. It's like, to not do that or to not have a patch, it's like, it's kind of just like laziness in a way. Or like, do you even really care? Like, most fans recognize how this stuff is helpful or it like aids in the idea of like these finals or tournaments being so important. So it's disappointing to see.
Yeah, and even from a go ahead quickly, even from like a different angle, from the player perspective, I'm imagining like, and because you say that you bring up with like the Champions League and even like old NBA jerseys too. Like, say you're a player and you make the finals, or if it's your first finals, or maybe it ends up being the only finals you go to in your career or something like that. Like, say this, let's put it like this. I'll make you happy for a second, Eric. Say this is the only time Halliburton ever touches the NBA finals, and I know you'd love that, right? And then, but now
art on it
exactly. But now he can't go and take, like, if you lose, you probably don't want to hang that up anyway. But say you're not gonna like this part. Say the Pacers go and win the finals, and he can't go and frame his jersey with the finals patch up in his house or whatever. He can still frame his finals jersey, sure, but like there's nothing separating that jersey from just a jersey he wore all season. But if it has that finals patch on it, that really goes back to that time. Like, it makes it a very specific moment in time that you kind of lose if it's just another jersey, if that makes sense. So I feel like from a player perspective as well, I feel like that was always beneficial to them. Like, that'd be cool. Like, if you got a signed finals patch, I don't know, finals patch Kobe jersey or something, that's sick. Like, if it's like obviously a Kobe jersey in general, whatever, but like if it's a Kobe's jersey in the finals, like that's like it really captures lightning in a bottle that you can't just get with any other jersey. So I feel like from that perspective too, that's also missing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I will also take the moment to actually give the MLB its flowers. I know they've been under some fire since they made a change in their the producer of their jerseys. But what I will say is that I think I have seen traditionally the MLB be very good when it comes to keeping that like elements of that, like, making things collector's items and making it easier for fans to identify with dates and just like important moments. So like I will say, when a rookie makes their MLB debut, there's actually an MLB debut patch that they actually wear on their jersey. And I think something like that, very, very cool, very, very unique, very small detail. It's a very small patch on the sleeve, does not take a lot of effort, but that within itself, I think, is very cool. And like, as just a Yankee fan, I identify with like, there's just different patches that I identify with, like the 2008 All-Star game that was held at the old Yankee Stadium the year it was demolished before the opening of the new Yankee Stadium. I will always see people wear their inauguration season jerseys or caps that are nod to what happened to be their championship year, but also the first year of the new stadium. And even in soccer, man, like the World Cup comes around, you see the World Cup patches, and I think those are very important. I think those stand out and make it very easy for fans to just like identify and just like covet these pieces. And I think that's what makes sports so cool, because they're a stamp in time that you can always think back on, and like they are kind of consistent in the sense that like, man, like, wow, this was a jersey from like the 2010 World Cup, and that automatically brings you back to, okay, what was I doing in 2010, or who was I watching that tournament with, who was I rooting for, who was going crazy in that tournament. It just like takes you back to just a lot of memories. And I think sports is that. Sports is not only the product on the TV, but like, who are you watching it with? Who do you personally identify with? So I will say that there are professional leagues out there still, or professional sports leagues still doing it, but yes, the sponsorships have gotten out of hand. I will even say WWE have gone insane. I saw yo, Keandre, you'll laugh at this, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a table, like the breakaway tables that they use, with a Slim Jim logo on it recently, which was hilarious and kind of embarrassing. Insane, man. And the Prime sponsorships have gotten out of hand, and just like the ring in general now has sponsorships, which it's interesting, because I used to identify sponsorships with like, oh, this is as someone who grew up watching like the Mexican Soccer League, I considered sponsorships to be like, oh, that's just a poor team, like that's just a team that is not as wealthy as like the big hitters. But now to see that everybody's just adopting that same strategy, it really does just like take away, I will say, takes away from just the aesthetic that like I think we were so used to loving. So I think it's interesting that this conversation has bled into the other professional sports leagues, but it's consistent with all of sports, like Alexi said, so I think it's worth mentioning. But just a few things I was frustrated about. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say.
Oh man, I mean, I agree. I was just saying before we started the pod, even like, Dre, you're rocking the Chelsea jersey with the no sponsor, and like, it's clean. It's much cleaner that way. I was talking about the AS Roma. They had the jerseys with SPQR on the front instead of a sponsor. Instead of now, it's like Riyadh season. Like, bro, why you got some Middle Eastern sponsor for Italy's biggest city for their team? Like, it's just random. So it's the amount of sponsors, on kits, in stadiums, on courts, but it's also the choice too. I feel like, man, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like sponsors back in the day made a bit more sense, or it visually aligned with the jerseys a lot more. Now it just feels like random combinations of designs and logos that don't match up. And maybe that's just the nostalgia in my head making me think that. That very well could be it. But yeah, most of these kits just aren't looking the same in soccer for me. So I sympathize with the NBA fans going through this.
100%.
Just a shout out.
Got it.
Yeah, just
Go
to
ahead.
shout out one, just because you mentioned like the compatibility. Ipswich from the Premier League, who actually just got relegated, tough. But last season, it's not my favorite looking sponsor, but their sponsor for the season on their kit was actually Ed Sheeran's tour, which was like, if you've seen Ed Sheeran's album covers, they have like the plus, the X, the minus, the divide, like that whole series he did. And I guess he did like a tour, like combining all those logos into like his one, I guess, math album tour. I don't know. I don't follow Ed Sheeran like that, but apparently he's from Ipswich, or at least that's his hometown or something like that. So he sponsored the team for their first season in the Premier League with his tour, and that was actually their sponsor for their jerseys. I don't know. I didn't love how it looked necessarily, but just like the story behind that, the actual relation, the connection between Ed Sheeran and the city, and I just thought that was something cool, and that's something you don't really get that often now. Versus like you said with the Riyadh season, who sponsors 80 different teams, whatever. Like I'm pretty sure Atletico Madrid also has a Riyadh season on their kits. And like you said, Roma. So if they face each other in the Champions League, let's say you have two teams having the same sponsor. Like for me, like that just doesn't hit, bro. It just doesn't hit. I feel like obviously not every big team's gonna have some personal sponsor. I think it only worked because it's Ipswich. It's a smaller team, obviously lesser budget. So Ed Sheeran, I mean, he has hella money. He probably could afford whatever, but he doesn't have to pay as much for that. But I think that's a cooler story behind the sponsor. Especially if you're like an Ipswich fan and say you like Ed Sheeran, okay, that's a cool combo. But no fans like, I love Digit Wireless or something. I don't know. Like not to hate on them, but like that's probably not even a real company. I just named some random. That sounds real though. I ain't gonna lie, but
It does.
no one's gonna say like I love that sponsor. You would love to look like I have a Samsung phone, and Chelsea back when they had the Samsung sponsors. Hey man, I was glazing, but it looked good though. Like it looked good on the kit. It always fit, and it also is a brand I happen to like. No, these days I don't care, but stuff like that is cool. But I don't know. We've kind of lost that in today's game.
100%. It is devastating. I think Ipswich is a great example of what, in an ideal world, teams should really strive for, of just a sponsor that fits with the story, fits with where you're based. One that comes to mind is it became really trendy for some reason on TikTok. All these pages talking about best soccer jerseys you could buy, and they picked this random small team in Greece called Athens Kalithea, which is sponsored by like the Athens Art Museum, and it's cool. Like it's a very simple logo, but it's a business that is based in your city. There's a historical tie, a cultural tie. It makes sense, and it looks fire. So we just need more of that, man. Too many gambling sponsors across the board in sports now. It's actually sad. I saw a stat for the Prem, which was like, it was ridiculous. I think like 13 teams had like gambling sponsors of some kind, or it might have been more than that, to be honest. But I don't know how people are getting the money in those companies, bro. These got to be fronts or something. That's another conversation.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just shut up now. All right.
I was looking at.
Hey, man. He said it, not me, man.
Yeah, come after me if anything, man. I don't gamble. It's fine.
I don't gamble either, but no, I do agree about the gambling sponsors. Seeing every other team have like something bet on their team, on their kit,
Yeah.
and they don't even look good. At least if you're gonna do a gambling sponsor,
They don't even look
cool.
good.
Like the logos aren't cool at all. It doesn't work. But the gambling companies have all the money, so I guess they're just gonna keep sponsoring everything.
Yeah, the commercials are out of control too, man. I'm sick and tired of the FanDuel. Speaking of, because we were just talking about the NBA Finals, the FanDuel Chuck GPT commercial. I just hate NBA commercials in general. They get so repetitive, but it's just all up in our face now, and I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. maybe we can table it for another day. Just like the how gambling is just at the forefront of sports, yet we have recent examples of like Dante Porter, for example, who got banned for life from the NBA for dabbling into gambling. There's a few other people who've been placed under investigation. Terry Rozier, I know, was somebody who was investigated. Don't know what that turned out to be, but I think that's definitely a prevalent conversation to have because it's just so out there now, and they're not even trying to hide it at this point. But that's neither here nor there. But cool, man. That was a good talk. That was a good talk. What I do want to get into though, and this was actually going to be our original question, or third topic, you can say, of the day. It was the NBA Finals currently going on. As we know, it's the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, two small market teams. So, as we know, we live in a world now where it's not just the big markets competing. Like back in the day, it's not just Boston, LA. It's not, I mean, New York was never quite fully there, but it's not just the big markets. You have small market teams performing on the biggest stage, and I think that's brought a lot of mixed emotions, mixed opinions. So my question to you all, do you think it is good for the sport of basketball when you have two small market teams duking it out in the NBA Finals? You have two, Indiana and Oklahoma City, two cities that are not considered major cities in this country, but they are currently the epicenter of the basketball world. So how do you feel? Does this benefit the game? Yes or no?
As an outsider, I would say hell yeah. I mean, I think so often you see the big teams succeeding, an LA Lakers or, Golden State Warriors, Celtics. And, they're established. They got their history. It's still cool to see them do well, but it's even cooler to see something new. And I think especially for smaller cities too, that could be like a big source of pride and, something they don't experience all that often. I think, who was it that won a trophy in the Prem this season? Was it Newcastle Dre? Who, I think it was like they had gone X amount of years without winning, and finally they won something similar to Tottenham, I guess.
Palace won the FA Cup.
Palace, that was it.
The Newcastle too. They won the Carabao Cup. So a lot of things happened this season like that.
But I think Crystal Palace was the one where it was like an actual very long time.
It's their first trophy ever. It's their first major trophy.
There you go. First trophy ever. And it's like, you wouldn't expect that normally. You wouldn't expect that to be possible. But, that's what keeps the fans going too, is that hope, that dream. And then finally, when they get that opportunity and they actually win it, I mean, there's nothing sweeter than that. And as like a neutral or as a bystander, I think that's always cool to see. So, especially for a finals this year, as someone who occasionally tunes in to the last few games, I will be tuning in because, I haven't seen these players. I haven't seen these teams before at this level. I'm curious.
Fair. Yeah, very fair. I think maybe it's two different questions. Like, if it's good for the game of basketball, the sport of basketball, and if it's good for the NBA. And to be fair, you'd think those two things are the same thing, but sometimes they're actually not. Like, sometimes what the NBA wants or what's good for the NBA's pockets isn't necessarily what's great for the sport of basketball. Maybe long term, if it's good for basketball, it's good for the NBA. At least you'd hope that, like, even if short term it doesn't benefit the NBA, that however many years down the line you see the trickle effect. Like, say, let's use these finals for example. Maybe short term the NBA is like, we kind of would have hoped it would have been bigger market teams, more people tuning in, more people invested, more relevancy, I guess, in the global mind. Because if you see even Lakers, Knicks, Warriors, and to be fair, the Warriors, I guess, are more of a recent thing too in themselves, but Miami, Chicago, things like that. we want those big teams in it because that even helps our brand globally. When the people from abroad hear, oh, Miami's in the finals, like we know Miami as a city. I might check that out, whatever. And also obviously helps if you have LeBron James on Miami Heat, like at that point in time as well. But the NBA might be like, oh, maybe that's not the best for us. But for the game of basketball, like Alexi said, having that kind of concentration in those cities, like for tourism for those cities as well, the youth of those cities seeing basketball concentrated in their city, that could give kids in Oklahoma City and Indiana a kind of, I'm trying to think of a phrase that's not sus. That can give them a little spark, a little spark that would make them think, oh, maybe one day I can be playing in the NBA Finals in my city. Maybe one day I could be playing the NBA Finals. And maybe they want to be on a big team too. Who cares? But I think long term that would be good for basketball. But short term, that might not be good for the NBA specifically. I think another example is like the style of play in the NBA that came about like mid 2010s with the Curry era and that kind of thing. For the NBA, that was good. Like that would make good TV. Curry specifically made good TV. That was exciting. But then we see the long-term effect of like what that's doing to youth basketball, what that's doing to a lot of other teams, that a lot of other players who aren't on Curry's level. Now we're just seeing, I know we might disagree slightly about this, Eric, but like the three spam, a lot of fans don't like that. Even if that came from a really exciting time in basketball, now you're hearing stories of like in youth AAU, kids are just spamming threes, like the fundamentals of basketball are going out the window. But for the NBA, that was great at the time. But for the game of basketball, it wasn't necessarily. So I think those two things don't always align. And for specifically the question you asked about the small market teams, I do think it's good for the game of basketball long term. But short term for the NBA, I'm not sure, because you do see a lot of people who aren't super invested being like, Knicks didn't make it. Even if it was Minnesota, that's still kind of the same situation with the two that are there right now. But Knicks didn't make it. There's nothing really for me. Like, there's no big celebrities. There's no Timothy Chalamet, no Ben Stiller going to the Indiana and OKC games for them. Like, obviously you see Kai Cenat at the game, whatever, just because it's the finals. Like, and a lot of people are gonna hate that Kai Cenat's even there anyway. But just because it's the finals in general, but it's not like anything city specific. Where it's just like if the Knicks were in the finals, regardless, because it's the finals, it just gets magnified even more. Then you get even more New York celebrities coming out to the games because they're like, okay, the Knicks actually made to the finals. Let me pop out, get my face out there. So I think those two things aren't always necessarily coexisting. But to answer your actual question without rambling so much, yes, I do think it's good for the game of basketball. But for the NBA, I think that's a different story.
100%. I think, I do want to acknowledge, thank you for making that distinction, because I was intentional about the way I asked that question. I think the big thing that people have been pointing to is, man, Indiana and Oklahoma City, man, they're going to have terrible ratings. And as we've seen, they have had not great ratings. The game one did not have great ratings, even though it was a really good game. But I definitely hear you. I agree with the fact that at the end of the day, who cares about ratings, man? It's not like our pockets are being benefited when you have big market teams going at it, man. I know I've pointed this example out previously, but like in the MLB, we had Dodgers versus Yankees this past year. And I mean, obviously I'm biased. I am a Yankee fan, but whole world I felt like was buzzing, and I would tune into the games. You had the celebrities showing out, you had people going, and I will say, like, yes, that's cool, it's good to see everything buzzing, but I think you can also make the argument that like it's also can sometimes even take away from the game. And I'm not one to just I love when non-fans tune in. I like I said, I was very happy to see non-basketball fans passionate about the Knicks. Like, that was cool to me. It was cool to see the city excited. But like, because we live in the social media age where like you will see, and this bleeds into, this does not just apply to sports, but we live in a world where just simply being there is cool enough, so people will just go just to be there. Like, oh, I'm gonna go because I've heard a lot of people buzzing about it because I've seen it all over my Instagram. I'm going to be there so I can look cool. And I think that bleeds into concerts, for example. You have people always criticize like crowds at concerts and how they're not singing along anymore. How you have people who are just there to record, just there because they heard the song on TikTok, or, you know, I think you can make the argument that we live in an age where that's going to be very common, and it bleeds into other worlds and not just the sports world. But I have seen people say like, man, David Stern has got to be like rolling in his grave right now because he's seeing how much the new, like, just like the new NBA world that Adam Silver has established makes it so that, you know, pretty much all teams have an equal chance of taking it all. And we've seen small market teams make it big. We've seen Denver win a championship. We've seen Milwaukee win a championship. Cleveland was a small market team, but because they had LeBron James, maybe it didn't necessarily feel that way in the 2010s. But, you know, small market teams winning it all is not a new thing. Oklahoma City Thunder, also a small market. But I will say for these current finals, like, both of these cities deserve an NBA Finals. I did not want Indiana there, obviously, but that is a passionate basketball city. If you see how the crowd is and how crazy they will get very passionate, and they are a small town that rides behind their team. And you could say the same thing about Oklahoma City Thunder. And you always, I think one of the most common photos that I see when I'm scrolling and when I've seen people post about like nostalgic NBA finals are like the old like 2010s like Oklahoma City crowds where you had all the fans in blue or all the fans in white. So I think at the end of the day, if you are a basketball fan, if you are a fan of the league itself, like if you are watching because you want to see the best product out there, I think you can make the argument that yes. And I will say, small market teams, this is not bad for the sport. At the end of the day, yes. Are ratings affected? Yes. Do I think people should be too caught up on it? No. Do I care if I see people posting about the NBA finals on social media? I don't, because I know I will be watching, you know what I mean? But, you know, I know that same logic won't apply to everybody, especially because we have two budding superstars who, and crazy, I just called Tyrese a superstar, but, you know, we'll just say that he's in the finals, right? But we have two unestablished names. You can make the argument, and Shea just won the MVP, but you have two new stars that a lot of people, the casual fan, may have not heard of too much. And so, yes, it's natural, it's expected that the buzz isn't going to be as crazy. But considering, I think it's interesting because people will throw a lot, like lots of different, I guess just you could say like criticisms that are kind of, what's the word? That like, I don't know, you're saying like, oh man, we need new, contradicting, that was the word I was looking for. It was like contradicting criticisms, right? So you have people saying, man, what are we going to do when Bron and Steph are out the door? What are we going to do when KD is out the door? You know, we have all these like stars who are on their way out. You have a finals with two new stars that nobody has heard about, yet people are still making the argument, man, I wish we were getting, you know, X, Y, and Z. I wish we had Bron again. But doesn't that just perpetuate the problem that a lot of people have been pointing out? Doesn't that just put us in the same hole where we're not producing new superstars? Like, I'm all for SGA getting the spotlight, man. I'm all for, he's literally the MVP. Like, I'm all for these teams getting their buzz. So I personally am a fan of it. I will just say it is interesting to see that it has been like widely criticized.
I think that was a good point you put there about the contradicting criticisms. Like, I do think the lack of, or at least the worry about the next stars is a bigger problem than whether or not the finals are taking place in big markets. Because like you said, LeBron James being the biggest star in the league, it didn't matter that no one ever wants to touch foot in Cleveland. LeBron James is the biggest, well, not even just the biggest star in the league, one of the biggest sports stars on the planet. So a small market team can be in the finals, and that's still a major event. It didn't matter. So if you want, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Obviously, sometimes you can. Now LeBron's in LA, so maybe that's the match made in heaven everyone wants to see. But then, ironically, his one time in the finals with LA was the Mickey Mouse bubble ring. So like even then things couldn't work out perfectly for the NBA in that sense. But if you want to have stars, not every star is going to be in a big market. It's more important that this finals series makes a star or potentially 2 stars that the league can have for the next 10 years. And then next year, say one of these teams are in the finals again, even if that's still going to be the same small market, but then you have a superstar on that team, which drives the audience to those finals rather than whether or not it's in New York or Boston or LA or whatever. That's what you want from the NBA. You want massive stars in any market that can drive those finals ratings, and that's what you care about so much. Because realistically, no fan actually cares about ratings until their team's not in the finals, and then they're gonna say, "Oh, these teams don't bring ratings." Really, throughout the year, do you ever sit there, like as a fan of a sport, do you ever go, you know what? I think I'm gonna Google these ratings. Like, let's be real, bro. No one's Googling ratings. I don't watch Chelsea, and then like after the game, like, I wonder how many people tuned into that game live. Like, what? Like, that's not realistic. That's not real. Like, obviously, we may have looked up the ratings, or say like Eric may have looked at the ratings specifically to have this conversation about the topic, or because other people online are saying the ratings are down. But generally, like, what fan of like a sport, like the product of a sport, actually cares about how many numbers the sport is doing on television, especially on mainstream television? Like, that can't even encapsulate how many people are actually tuning in, because most of these impressions you want to be coming from social media anyway these days. So that whole thing to me that's all falsified. That's all like people wanting to get on their soapbox and say the ratings are down, and realistically, who cares? Like, genuinely, who cares about that? So I don't know. I think the conversation that's more important, like that you mentioned, that maybe we can have that after these finals and heading into next year to see where the state of that is the next star situation after the Bron, Curry, KD era. That's more important to me, because then once you have those stars, any market's viable. But the whether or not it's a small market, big market, that's honestly irrelevant.
100%. We grew up in the era where Oklahoma City was booming, and because we were younger, but the kids were behind Kevin Durant. Pause. But the kids were all for Kevin Durant and Russ. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that. But, Harden, Russ, and KD, man. I think we identified with that team. I wasn't a Thunder fan, but, like, I did not like LeBron. To this day, do not like LeBron. So I really was rooting for that Oklahoma City team. So at the end of the day, I think you also got to think about who is the young audience watching. Shea, obviously, we always mention he has that little like aura gimmick, and I'll call it a gimmick because I think it's a little corny, but the aura gimmick that's kind of been placed on him. I can guarantee you that there are a lot of young kids right now growing up watching these finals, wanting to play like Shea, wanting to play like Tyrese, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's how you create a sustainable fan base. But just interesting.
It's funny you say that about OKC. And I think this is a perfect example of what we were just talking about with the small market and a star. Is that when you started this conversation and you said, is it bad for Indiana and OKC, these small markets, to be in the final? In my head, even subconsciously, I didn't even bring it up till now, till you just said that. To me, OKC never even felt like a small market team. And obviously they are. Like, obviously Oklahoma City is a small city. But even growing up, because our main NBA experience has been like at least for me, maybe you can go back to 2008, but like when I was actively really watching 2010 afterward, OKC were in the finals like a year after that, and they had one of the best players in the league. The guy people would have said is the second best player in the league for a while, until maybe people wanted to bring in Curry as like that rivalry instead. But still, KD was still considered the second best player in the league after Bron for a good chunk of time. So to me, for those however many years KD was there, OKC always felt like a massive team to me, even if the market was tiny, because it didn't matter because they had the star. So I think that's exactly what we're hoping can happen again with Hallie or Shea or Ant in Minnesota, or we would have hoped maybe Ja in Memphis or something like even those kind of things. You would hope that the star can make the market, not the market making the star. Because I think right now, not to hate on Brunson, I think he is a great player in that sense. But I feel like Brunson is on the verge of that being the market making the star rather than the star making the market. And maybe that's another debate to have for another day because I don't want to trip that wire. But I do think that that's an interesting. I think OKC is a great example. Even the fact that we call them OKC, maybe people in Oklahoma City always called them that. But growing up before the KD, Russ, Harden finals, I never even heard of Oklahoma City, and I would have never called them OKC. But now, just through NBA branding and those players being there and that being a relevant team, now I always refer to Oklahoma City as OKC, and that I always was just a decent sized city in my mind. I don't even know what the population is, so that's enough to say how important having the star in that city is.
100%, and happy to have that Jalen Brunson conversation because although I don't fully agree with what you said, I think there is truth to what you are saying. 100%.
There you go.
Yeah,
write that down. We're definitely gonna have that conversation in the future.
Cool. All right. Do you wanna bring us home?
Yeah. Okay. Last topic of the day. A little more fashion for you guys. I think a few weeks ago we did the Jordan best Jordan model World Cup, which was, maybe a little controversial in itself. Maybe not the end result, but some of the little battles we had along the way might have been a little controversial if you ended up checking that one out. And I think at the time you mentioned, I think the Yeezy might be another fun one to do, despite maybe current events. The shoes are the shoes. So,
we're sticking to the shoes in this conversation.
Shoes are the shoes. So here we go. We have a best Yeezy World Cup. There's only 16 options in this one. There weren't as many, obviously. I think there are more than 16 Yeezy models out there, but you have to narrow it down to 16. And we'll be they're randomized like last time as well. So anything can match up against anything. Could be the best against the best. You never know first round. And we'll also be doing majority rules. So we'll have to discuss it amongst ourselves. And whatever the majority is, that moves on to the next round. I think that's all the rules.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it. So first up, we have the 500 versus the Knit R&R. And let me know if I'm pronouncing any of these wrong.
Knit Runner, just Knit Runner.
There you go. I knew I was going to get something wrong here and there. Knit Runner, man. Use all the goddamn letters in the alphabet. But anyway,
I got you. I'll talk the names.
Yeah, there we go.
500s for me, man. I got two pairs of these. Most comfortable pairs. They're timeless. They use a midsole from an old Adidas basketball model. I believe maybe they were Kobe's, maybe they weren't. I can't remember. But they're super comfortable. They're stylish. People say, oh, chunky shoes are dead now. People wearing Sambas. Nah, these to me, I'm wearing anytime. So 500s all day.
Yeah, I'll also go 500s. Knit Runners look comfortable. I just couldn't get behind the yellow on that. I think this is, I don't know if they came out. Yeah, they did come out with more colorways, but I think this is the most popular colorway.
It looks like you stepped in piss. I
don't know. I'm just not a fan of the, man, and this is another, again, we can table this conversation as well. I'm just not a fan of the cozy, like just the cozy shoes, like the cozy shoe age that we live in, like the Crocs, like the Ugg slippers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll table that. That's a good conversation.
I love that. Yeah, let's do it.
Dre?
I'm going with the 500. This one, honestly, like, I'm never wearing the Knit Runner, so I guess I have to go 500, but I don't necessarily love the 500 either. Look a little like Blastoise to me, but we can move on to the next one.
Big man Blastoise, man. Let's get it. Ooh.
Load it up. What do we got here?
We got the 350 V1s, the OG Adidas Yeezy 350s versus the 700 V2s, which are my personal favorite 700s and quite possibly favorite Yeezy. But right now, I mean, they're having me decide between nostalgia and my own taste. This is difficult. What are y'all thinking?
This is hard. This is so tough. I will say I own a pair of 700s and they are extremely comfortable. And I love them, and I think they may be a more timeless pair. But the 350 V1s, man, this takes me back to high school. This takes me back to Kanye himself. This takes me back to the Turtle Doves when those were like such a coveted pair. And even if I know we were talking like early in the episode about like the name brand sticking out and just wanting something because of the name behind it. I think 350 V1 was like a very early example of that. Like if you saw somebody wearing those, because this was before reps were what they are now. Obviously reps existed, but they weren't as popular. And I guess you could
started because of this. They started because of this shoe and what he did.
Yes, 100%. But man, those I think that pair speaks for itself. So I'm gonna have to go 350 V1s.
Interesting.
Actually, this is not hard at all. 700 V2 easily.
V1.
No, 700 V2.
Oh, 700 V2.
Yeah,
yeah. You're on crack. I've never picked the 350s over the 700.
Dude.
And this is coming from someone who hasn't bought a pair of Yeezys in my life. I never got on the Yeezy train necessarily. But when the 700s came out, I was like, okay, I can see myself wearing those. Like, those were the first pair of Yeezys that I was like, especially I guess maybe it's V1, the Wave Runners. I'm not exactly sure. But
yeah.
The Wave Runners, I was like, actually, I can see myself wearing those. Versus the 350s, never in my life that I even have an inkling to be like, you know what, I think I want to go out and buy a pair of Yeezys. To me, these look like I could buy something like this on Amazon quite easily. That is going to cost me like $30, bro. I'm not going to lie to you. If you just
My grandpa literally did do that, by the way. They had the Fufu Yeezy soles. Like, it was crazy.
Look at the shoe on the left here. Like, to me, like, I know it was a different point in time. We're talking 10 years ago at this point. So it was a different point in time, different hype, different style that maybe this suited more. But just looking at these
post Roshi era, that's important to note,
especially post Roshi. But there's nothing about just looking at these right now that make me think I need this over a Roshi. Like, I don't know. For me, this isn't the craziest shoe. I never understood the hype around this. And there are some Yeezy models where I do understand the hype, but this one's not one of them.
Yeah. As much as my heart wants to say the 350 V1, I also think I got to go 700 V2 because I quite literally wear my pairs like 5 days out of the week, all the time. And when Adidas was discounting all their leftover pairs, I made sure I bought one more just to hold on to when I needed it because that's how much I love the shoe. Yeah, but this is not me diminishing the value the 350 V1 did for the culture and just what it stands for. And I'm still mad I missed out on the restock that happened, I think, last year. Those are classics, though. Those are absolute classics.
Man, that is wild.
I
don't know.
Oh, do we even need to talk about this one?
We can save the discussion for the one on the left for the next round because we're not even debating this.
Wait, but make sure to announce them.
Yeah. The Nike Air Yeezy 2, Yeezy Pods. I mean, yeah. We don't need to talk anymore. Y'all know where we're going. This is also easy for me. This is the Desert Boot versus the Season 6 slides. I don't know why these are in here because they don't come to my mind when thinking about Yeezys. The Desert Boots are fire. I think they're cool colorways. They're a bit derivative of the 500s in a way, or maybe the 500s were derivative of them. But it's a similar visual. Not actual functional boots, but I think they stand out and do their job well for being a sneaker boot. These came out at a time when it was the Nikes, I believe it was the AF1, or where they were doing like the special field Air Force Ones, where they were essentially Air Force One boots with like big ass canvas covers or things that went up the leg. And that was hype at the time. Same time as Fear of God, but these stood out on their own for me. So I'm
Oh,
going
you're
desert
so
boot.
right. I forgot about these, man. I just looked up the Nike SFs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
wanted a
dope.
pair for a long time.
Yeah, no, I wanted a pair, yes, of SFs, but I also wanted a pair of those desert boots. So I'm going desert boot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that's giving me pause is that they spelled boot BT, but other than that, yeah, I'm going desert boot as well. The season 6 slides just look like slides, bro.
Yeah. There's nothing that crazy. All right. Ooh, another. You know what? This is decent still. 350 V2 versus the 700 V3. I don't think enough people gave the 700 V3 the credit it deserved.
I agree.
I got one pair, and it was honestly more comfortable than 350s for me and my feet. And it doesn't even have boost. And I think with pants, it is probably one of the cleanest Yeezys to rock. Um, that said, the 700 V2 is versatile in its own right with the colorways, the different fits you can rock with it. Um, I think it has an advantage in how popular it became. And obviously, right now we're looking at the zebra colorway, which was iconic for the time. I remember freshman year of college, I randomly one day just went to Foot Locker at Union Square, and they had these sitting, and there was like a line of 5 people. And this was when it was hyped up too. Like it was like just a shock drop of these shoes. And I got myself a pair, and I don't think the only time I was more excited was when I won my Travis Scott ones at Kith for retail. But that was a top sneaker moment for me. So I think for me, I have to go 350 V2.
You lucked out if you had those two moments, and it was the same year.
Same year.
But
Same year. I
that's
used all my
actually
luck that
insane.
year.
That's
That
not true.
is,
You're
yeah.
generally quite lucky. You're generally quite lucky, to be fair. That's one thing I know about you. You and someone else we know both tend to be very lucky, and
Maybe I
those
do
kind of
got to
things.
start gambling then.
I'm
I take
saying.
back what I said about those gambling sponsors.
It's funny. Yeah, I definitely hear you on the V3s, man. I think they deserve more love in this colorway in particular. I forget what it's called, but it's the one with like the little blue tint on on the sneaker. So I wanted a pair of these as well, but never got around to it. But the 350 V2s, man, I spoke what I said about the turtle doves, and same applies to this silhouette as well. Gives me, again, you think Kanye when you see that sneaker, you think Life of Pablo days, you think like, skinny jeans, off white, maybe like Hood by Air. Hood by Air was like before this, but just that whole aesthetic. I don't know, but I'm gonna go 350 V2s. I also lucked out and got a pair for retail for the zebra colorway. I will say it was sophomore year of college, so this was 2019. Um, and at that point, they were not as hype, but I was excited to wear these, man. It's not like they were as like, I don't know. I will say like skinny was still kind of in at that time, like skinny jeans.
Oh yeah.
So
I have
yeah.
not so fond memories of pairs I wore with these shoes. But yeah, man, those colorways were honestly so great. I don't think we gotten a shoe with as many great colors as we have with the 350 V2.
Good point.
And that's why I'm also choosing them.
There you go.
I'll give you that
Easy.
simple. Yeah, I went crazy on the V1s. I think those shoes are Walmart shoes, but these I actually, although you could say they're not crazy difference, I think the slight upgrades to this model, the silhouette, the shape of them, especially like
The
you're just
shape.
looking at the way that pair, like the right foot is in the front there, you can really see the curvature of that shoe. I think it really hits a lot more than the V1s to me. I think it was a good upgrade. The V3 though of the 700 is cool, but it looked like some kind of symbiote kind of effect on it.
That's why I love them, bro.
And I
It's
don't
so
mind it.
organic looking.
It also kind of looks like it could be just like and maybe to be fair, maybe Adidas basketball is bunking the other way around, but it does look like it could just be like an Adidas basketball type shoe. Which
It's
they
the
have
other way
both.
around, which is
Yeah, that's what I'm
crazy.
saying. It's probably the other way around.
Like,
But yeah,
all right, 350 V2. Another easy one.
Light work.
The 700 V1 versus the 1050, which I don't even think it was officially released, or it was released in like super limited quantities. I think it's a cool, sneaker boot aesthetic as well. But again, the 700s, man, are, I think, the best Yeezys, especially the Wave Runner. Absolutely iconic. It was hated on off the rip, myself included. But once people started wearing them and like the fits they put together, and you saw those colors in real life, it changed. It changed. And their influence continues to this day. So for me, 700 V1 all day.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's not even close. Especially the Wave Runner. We can talk about that more next round too.
Yeah. Now this is interesting. The original Nike Air Yeezy versus the Adidas Yeezy 750. The first Adidas Yeezy.
This is crazy. This is like a crazy first round matchup.
This is an insane one.
This should be you could argue this could and maybe should even be the finals in the eyes.
You could argue that. You could definitely argue that.
Heavily disagree, but
I will forever be upset that Adidas gave up on the 750 model and didn't drop more of them or more colorways or re-releases down the line. To this day, like if they, obviously their partnership is over, but if all of a sudden they just drop this pair again, I would day one be there for that. The Nike Air Yeezy, I respect what it is for the culture and what it represents for Yeezys, but also just with me and my timeline, before I was following sneakers as much as I was, like this was ahead of my time. The 750 was more in line when I was really getting into the thick of it. So,
okay, sorry.
I really wish I didn't say that.
Sorry, I had to.
I'm leaning towards the 750. What are you guys thinking?
Well, I'll say off rip, to me, this is not close. Nike Air Yeezy. I'll just say that off rip. I'll let you guys. Maybe it seems like to you guys these are more 50-50, but to me, this is not even close.
Interesting. Why is it not even close? What stands out?
I just
to
like
you?
the structure of the Nike model more.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, the Adidas 750 looks like it looks like that, like the heel area is bound to collapse. Like I don't know, it just looks very structurally like it does not have the integrity.
Faulty.
Maybe in hand. I never held these shoes in my hand, so maybe in hand is way more sturdy than it looks. But to me, it looks like something. It looks like guys who don't want to wear Uggs, but they're like, I can get some a little more hype than Uggs.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm just gonna keep it a stack. This is from someone who's not invested in these communities, so I got nothing to lose, bro. I'm gonna keep it a stack with y'all. These are literally like the male Uggs, but you really wanted a pair of Uggs, but the guys don't get on you for wearing the Uggs. So let me get the Adidas 750 Yeezy, whatever. It kind of got that feel to it. Cause the Uggs, the heel on the Ugg be collapsing, bro. The girls be stomping down in those Uggs, and then during the winter, and all of a sudden this dragon is a different color. It looks like this is gonna be the same exact thing. But the Nike version has some real structural integrity to it, and especially that black colorway. Oof, I love that colorway.
The solar reds, man, bro. And I will say, respect to respect to the 750s, man, but the Nike Air, just to be clear, I don't think we clarified, these are the Nike Air Yeezy 2, so this is the second rendition of so just want to make that clear.
That is true. I messed that up, and it's not in the...
All good.
Yes.
But I just want to say these are Kanye's best creation, man. Like, period. Like, I'm picking these over any other sneaker on this list, so I'm gonna go Air Yeezy.
Interesting. Okay, so we'll see if maybe something.
I will say, I think the Air Yeezy, as much as I do love the 750 and wish it dropped more, I think the colors of the Air Yeezy, it's iconic. You see that combo literally anywhere, you think of that shoe.
100%.
I don't think there's any other shoe which has that level of power with color. Yeah. That was a tough one for me, though. This will be interesting. The 950 boot versus the foam runner.
Also not close.
I love my weird looking shoes. I stand by this. I love those organic shapes. Pause on that maybe. But the foam runner's sick, bro. The fits with them, the comfort is crazy. Eric, I'm pretty sure you tried on my pair once, like in my apartment.
I did, bro, and because I really wanted a pair. Yeah. And but I know I just came at like cozy outfits, but I will say foam runners are my exception.
Yeah, I think, they're just kind of perfect for what they are, and the influence is still felt. These came out when, like 2019, 2020, maybe.
They're ahead of its time.
They were ahead of its time, and to this day, we're still getting Crocs riffs off of these, and other brands doing their own. Nike came out with their own slides, which look very Yeezy inspired. So, these got to be it for me versus what looks like a regular LL Bean outlet duck boot. Like, sorry.
I'm not gonna lie though, the foam runners to me, like, these are the speeds. And I know that sounds crazy, because obviously, like, there were people who wore it before him, obviously associated with Kanye and all these other people. But to me, speed has completely taken over this shoe. Like, I can never, anytime I see anyone wearing a foam runner, I just associate it in my mind with speed. I think he's made it like low key part of his brand as well. Like, he even had like when he did like a charity match, and he had foam runner cleats that he wore in a charity match as well. Like, even things like that, to me, these are fully the speed like silhouette. That being said, I'm going with the 950 boots. Now that you say it, they do kind of just look like some LL Bean boots. But if I had to,
it's not bad, but it's just,
yeah. If I had to be honest about which one I would wear, I'm more likely to wear that boot, the black colorway specifically. Maybe the brown. I like the brown too, but is that brown or with my sunglasses? That is brown.
Yeah, that was the brown.
I was more likely to wear those in the winter, and I think the fact that they do look like just some other random boot, I wouldn't pay for those. But if I had to wear those, the fact they look like some other random boot is fine to me. Versus like the foam runner, although I can appreciate what you say about the weird look and like the symbiote type thing. I do like that in concept, but I wouldn't actually end up wearing that out. So I would have to go with the 950, but I know this might be a losing effort.
Yeah, I think, I definitely hear you on the whole speed branding thing. I think I love the foam runners, and I'm going to pick them, but I will say this is where cozy kind of began, and the place where it's at now is, I'm not happy with it, but I think, like I said, these are the exceptions. I'm going to go foam runners.
Foam runner it is. Next up.
Ooh.
Next round. So we're just skipping the Air Yeezy 1, I guess.
Yeah, that's crazy, but we had the season 6 slides.
That doesn't really make sense.
I think it's randomized. I think there are actually 22 options on the website, but it has to only choose 16 out of the 22 for the bracket.
Got you. Okay. Well, we are left here with the Nike Air Yeezy 2 versus the 350 V2. Eric, I know your choice based off what you said before.
Yeah, tough, but yeah, Nike Air Yeezy 2 all day, every day.
What about you, Alexi?
It's tough, man. These are literally probably the peaks of two respective eras. Just like culturally, the Adidas and the Nike era. For me, I think I have to do the 350 V2 just because, that's what I wore. That's what I sought. The colors of those. With all due respect to the Air Yeezy 2. No disrespect at all. It's just a matter of what I wore and my preference. So
that's fair. And I think maybe if we were a little older, we might think
if we were older, it would be the Air Yeezy.
A little 100%. Differently. But despite that, I'm going Air Yeezy. Because
Scared me,
to
bro.
me,
I was like, no way.
yeah, no, I was just trolling. The 350s, to me, they aren't like maybe actually hype wise, they are the peak of the Adidas era. So I understand what you say for that, but actual design wise, I think a shoe that came later was actually better in the Adidas era. So maybe we'll see that matchup later. But I have to go Nike Air
Yeah.
Yeezy.
Fair enough. Next up. Wait, no. Wait, this is the Air Yeezy, bro. I'm losing my mind.
Wait, yeah, hold on.
Am I thinking of the 3? Is there a 3? Which one am I thinking? Hold on.
No, I think there was a repeat. I think that's just what.
Nah, because there's the Zens, right? That's what they're called. These.
Oh,
These were the ones. Yeah. Okay.
the one got a strap and a bigger strap. Okay.
I'm just.
Yeah, but there's,
Yeah,
There's
there's
the 2s on here twice.
yeah, the V2s are on here twice. There's a repeat.
All right. All right.
That's
I felt like
randomization.
I was losing my mind. Well, for the sake of the repeat, that I feel like I would pick the 700 V2 anyways. But
Okay, we can put the, just for the sake of the repeat, we can let
It's a buy
Yeah.
round, but yeah.
yeah.
We'll give it to
let
him.
that one advance. Yeah.
All right. 500 versus the foam runner.
They got lucky. They both got lucky. They should not get past this round either of them, honestly. Damn, that's a shame.
Yeah, this is. I think I have to do the 500. I just wear it more.
I agree. 500s.
Damn.
Jay.
Honestly, it's crazy how little I care about these two shoes. So I'm going 500, call it a clean sweep, and go on to the next one.
Easy. 700 V1 versus the Desert Boot.
Light work.
Light work.
V1.
We don't even need to talk about it.
Okay.
No, this is still light work for me. 700
Yeah.
V2 versus the 500.
I agree.
700 V2. I praised
I
it
know.
before. It's peak.
I call my
V2.
700 V2 is getting some buy rounds, bro. This is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
You got the Air Yeezy 2 versus the 700 V1.
To me, this is more like a final than
This is very final-esque.
than the Air Yeezy versus 750. I know we talked about that earlier. To me, that wasn't even remotely close. These two, actually, I think we were talking about peak of like Nike and Adidas. Obviously, 700 hype maybe didn't hit like the fever pitch that the 350 V2 hype did, but in terms of design, these were the first Yeezys, maybe the first Yeezys ever, where like. Cause I wasn't aware of them even before they came. I know you said like you were hating on them before they dropped, just on the model, and then they impressed you. I wasn't even aware of them. Like wasn't even tapped into what Yeezy were doing at that point. But once I actually saw like someone wear these in person, I was like, hold up, like these, like, okay, I might have to dibble and dabble in the Yeezy ecosystem. You know, like these shoes actually really impressed me from Yeezy. I never was on that train, like I said earlier. So. I'll give him that for the Adidas era. This is more of a final.
So you
I'm
locking
not-
in?
I didn't say which one I chose though. So I'll let you guys choose. I'll let you guys discuss.
I'm picking 700 V1. You know, I can respect the greats, but the Wave Runner is something different. The impact it's had. You know,
Okay.
I've been blessed to have a pair. Knowing what wearing that shoe is like. Every time I wear that shoe, I feel like I could conquer the world, man.
Crazy.
Air Yeezy too, man. I have not been blessed to own a pair, and I don't think I ever will be blessed. And I also think I would be able to conquer the world if those were on my feet, man. And those are insane, bro. I can't. Man, I don't want to go too crazy, but
It sounds like you want to say 700 V1.
no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's not even close for me.
Okay. Dre?
Interesting. Now here's the dilemma we're in right now. We can make this a little spicy. So Nike Air Yeezy if that beats the 700, it goes into the final against the 700 V2. And I already know what Eric's choosing.
Are we already at the final?
No. After this is the final. But we already know the first round of the semifinal, how that went. But I am very curious if it came down to it, what you guys choose between the V1 and the V2.
I know what I'd pick.
Wouldn't matter. This is not how tournaments work. Like what? It's like, what would we have gotten if like the Classico would have been the semifinal instead of the final? No, bro.
No. This is how tournaments work because I can pick the V1 right now and then we can find out. That's exactly how tournaments work.
Pick what your heart says, bro.
All the power is in my hands. But I'm gonna keep it a stack. Nike Air Yeezy.
Thank you. We can have a conversation though after this.
Interesting.
I just want to, round that up a little bit.
Well, I have to go 700 V2 based off that previous round. I mean, yeah, it's the better shoe. I'm gonna say it.
Nike Air Yeezy too. Not close. Still. The first round matchup was the closest for me, by the way. The
versus the 750,
the 350 V1s versus the Nike V2s. That was my final. Like that would have been. You're easy too.
Interesting. Honestly, I don't know whether I would try like more between the 700 V1 and 2, which is what is making this difficult. Because I just picked the Air Yeezy over the V1. But if I'm being realistic, this comes down to what I'd rather wear versus what I'd rather look at. And that's not always the same thing. But for the sake of the best Yeezy shoe, if that's what this comes down to, that is the title on this website, uwufufu.com. Shout out. If it comes down to the best Yeezy shoe, I think I'll probably, because I'm not wearing any of these ever anyway, I'll probably have to go down to what is the best to look at. And to me, the Nike Air Yeezy 2 is just a beautiful work of art. So I have to narrowly go with that one. Because if I did have to wear it, I'd go V2 of 700 though.
That's crazy to me. Like I respect its icon status, but to me, my one qualm with it is I feel like now we have so many shoes which look like it or take heavy inspiration from it. To be
fair, a lot of
like
Team Jordans
there was a period of Kyrie's which looked very similar.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But low key, if you had said that when you were making the argument, I know you just said it's not close. If you had said the Nike Air Yeezy 2 looks like a Team Jordan, I would have backed you. I honestly, for the troll, I would.
Bro, you. But this could be another discussion, man. But Jordan Brand and the Team Jordans and all those side Jordans, they get a little more flack than they should.
I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up real quick.
I think this came out the past year, the Jordan 4R. We talked about it, I think, with the Nigel Sylvester, maybe.
Yeah.
Like these are not regular Jordans, but these are clean. These are nice.
I never seen that white colorway. That's cool too.
Like
I think that colorway saved.
They're actually doing something outside of the main line.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
No, ain't know nothing about that.
But I am curious. So actually, let me do a quick.
I just got what you were trying to say.
Nothing about that.
Nothing about that.
Nothing about that. I am curious though. What you would have chose, especially Alexi, what you would have chose if it came down to V1 versus V2 700.
V2.
Interesting.
I think
very interesting. Over the wave runners.
Over the wave runners, because I think for me what stands out is the paneling on that upper. Because I mean you got the same midsole, right? It just comes down to what colors are in there. But the paneling on the upper and the use of the mesh and how the tongue is also different. The one thing with the wave runners is their tongue is a little weird. It all fits so much better on the V2, and I think it's just a better silhouette. So, and like it just looks so clean in all the colorways. Like for me personally, it's the OG colorway, the statics, and then the all black is the best all black shoe. Full stop. I will always stand by that.
What about you? If you had to, I know Air Yeezy 2 was so far ahead of these both, but if you had to choose between V1 and V2 of the 700s, what have you have gone with?
V2s also. I think I also am a little biased because I own a pair of statics, so like I think that's what sways me. But I think overall the Wave Runners, they were cool. They had a little mo. I think that like colorway with like the green and orange is, what's the name of that colorway again?
The green and orange,
the one we were just looking at, like the
Wave Runner.
Oh, is it really just called the Wave Runner?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Yeah. No, exactly. Yes. No, you're right. I was expecting I thought they had like a more like, I don't know, like niche name.
Yeah,
but yeah, no. But the Wave Runners, I think, are iconic, and I think they remind me of like, it's like COVID type times. Like, I mean, they were popping a little bit before then, but like,
interesting.
It is an iconic colorway, I will say. But I don't know. I think besides the Wave Runner, if you look at the other colorways under that silhouette, like I think there were a lot more misses than people will acknowledge. You know what I mean? Like if you just look up.
That's a fair argument.
Yeah, if you just look it up, I think the Wave Runner was like the most successful colorway, but the other ones are just a little questionable.
For the V1, I can agree.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I was curious too that the V2 kind of reminds me, and I'm 100% sure you're gonna say that. I mean, even that makes sense to me. The timing of it, that Adidas took these runner models after the Yeezy situation fell apart, but like those like Oswego, like those type of shoes that Adidas has. They have the whole like Oz something line that they would do a bunch of different versions.
Dr. Oz, man.
Literally, all those to me always look like I guess offshoots of like that 700 line, so 700 V2 specifically type of line.
Yeah. They did that for a bit, and with the Climacools too. Those the past year or two. I don't know if you've seen those. Those are heavy inspiration from just all the Yeezy stuff. So I get why Kanye was going a bit crazy on Twitter with some of those comments, man, because they were really doing fakes.
There you go. Adidas is uncle,
But I respect it too. They're making a style more accessible for people. I think that's always a good thing.
I think as a consumer, like if you're him, obviously that's hella annoying, worst thing in the world. But if you're just a random, same thing like the conversation about the ratings in the NBA finals. Like if you're just a random person who just wants to wear a pair of sneakers, why do you care if Kanye made the sneakers or if Adidas made the sneakers? It's just a pair of sneakers. If you're an aspiring creator, maybe that's a different situation where you have to worry about. Maybe that's like a red flag for you in the future. But I think if you're just a random person who wants a pair of shoes, then it's shoes,
Yeah.
But yeah, any last comments on this topic before we wrap up?
That's it for me, man. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I will say the Nike Air Yeezy 2s, I know Alexi made a comment, like a combination, or like, no, not a combination. They look a lot like sneakers that came up after it. But from what I remember, I believe what Kanye was trying to do is like he was trying to combine kind of different Jordan silhouettes when making that silhouette. So I think that's that's fair. That's a fair thing to say. But man, I think when it comes to a silhouette, the colorways are what are gonna reign supreme, and that's what's gonna be the deciding factor of what, at least in my book, will be considered like a better silhouette. And I think the execution of the colorways were pretty much they're perfect. And maybe if some of the V1 samples, because I've seen some pretty crazy samples, if some of the V1 samples on the Nike Air Yeezy model, if those had been released, maybe we're having a different conversation. But from what we know, from what we have, Nike Air Yeezy 2, it's got to be one of the best sneakers of all time, period. Like, period, point blank.
actually funny you say that about. I know we're trying to wrap up, but it's funny you say that about him combining. I never knew that he was trying to combine the silhouettes intentionally, because that kind of roundabout comes back to the whole Team Jordan thing I said at the end of the whole World Cup, because a lot of those Team Jordan silhouettes are really just combining like the retro models, like different parts of the retro models, in really bad ways that people hate on. And some of them, I think, like you said, are a little slept on in their own ways too. But I guess Kanye just picked the right parts of each one to actually make that Frankenstein work out. But there we go. That is the end of that World Cup. I think that's our second one. To me, those are some of the most fun segments we do on the show. So if you'd like to see more, let us know in the comments. There's a bunch of other ones we could do out there. Those are just the first two relevant ones that came to mind. But yeah, another fun week, another great podcast, if we do say so ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But yeah, like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. We very much appreciate it. Last week, next week, we're keeping it going. And the NBA Finals heating up. I didn't check the score, but I'm pretty sure Oklahoma City should have won that game. If the Pacers ended up winning, that is absolutely insane. I'm checking it and I'm stalling for time. Yep. Oh my God, they got blown out. So yes, the Thunder won game 2. Is heating up, and we will be covering, like Eric's saying, Thunder in 5. I'm saying Pacers in 7, but we will be covering the NBA Finals once that wraps up very soon. We will be covering the Club World Cup once that comes up. That is foul. Oh my God, finger looking good. You look like Kendrick Perkins. And
yeah, let me see that James Winston, like how many want to eat a W? How many? Yeah, we also that's what I was doing.
My favorite joke. Yeah, I always throw that in there. The eat the W clip is so funny. James Winston's the GOAT, man. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up. Transfers, Club World Cup, NBA Finals. We're covering it all. So stay locked in with us. But we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Peace out, y'all. Have a good one.